It's alright, I've not took up bird watching again. Those days are long gone. But this here at Eakring was where I used to do all my bird watching. Well, for the last 17 years of it. Saw some good things from here. Today though, I've just popped up just to see whether there's any early painted lady migration. There doesn't appear to be. I've been here sort of 10-15 minutes and there's no sign. There's a painted lady knocking about, a rather tatty individual, but it's not moving through. Nothing is moving through, and it's not surprising really, but painted ladies do tend to move through a lot earlier than the likes of red admirals. So it always pays to keep an eye out and just keep abreast, or try and keep abreast of what's happening. But I'm not too fond of July, and I suppose I like August even less really. This August is just a dry and barren month with the weather and the year that we've had. You won't see many flowers in this picture, and there's a good reason for that, because there aren't any. However, if we want to see any insects today, we might have to head over to a patch of ground, a corner of a field that's been left by one of the local farmers here at Eakring, and that's full of knapweed. Whether there's still any flowers left or not, but we may well find one or two nice things to film there. I just need to get up. Just nice sat here though. Well, it's certainly a good year for harvesting, and that's what's going on over the majority of Eakring. There's some going on right over to the right there. All these fields that are nearest to me have all been harvested already. Some are bare, ready for the next crop, but those crops won't go in until there's been a considerable amount of rain, and that doesn't look as though it's coming anytime soon. But I think what we'll do, we'll head in the car, just nip 100 or so yards up the road, and then walk over to that area just in front of Lound Wood. And it's a terrific area that's been set aside for a number of years now. There's some scrub growing in it, and it's full of flowers, lots of thistles and lots of knapweed, so we may well find a few nice butterflies to have a look at. I've still got to get up though. Well, I just started walking back down towards the car and just coming through this really good example of meadowland here at Eakring, and a painted lady flew just across in front of us, about a foot off the ground, paused at one of these rejuvenating clover heads, fed for 30 seconds to a minute, and then has gone off south. So I'm just having another 5 minutes here just to make sure that there isn't anything really pronounced going off migration wise. But this meadowland here, it's a large area meadowland. It runs off down the hill towards the trees, and it's well maintained and cut because it's cut in 3 sections. I might have mentioned this before, as I featured this area meadowland on a video about dandelions, singing the praises of dandelions, what seems like many months ago now. And because it's cut in 3 sections, each usually about a week apart, that allows the insects and other invertebrates to move across from one area into the next, and then when that one's cut, they get a chance to either move back to this first one or continue on into the other section that remains uncut. It's a technique that works well, and this is a fabulous bit of meadowland. It stands on a northward facing slope, is very flower rich, isn't fertilised in any way, never has been, grazed during the winter months, usually by sheep. They're took up and there's no grazing from about March onwards. It's a smashing habitat. And say one time used to hold wall brown here and also marsh pug. But with the mowing regime or the cutting regime being as it is, it already means that plants like clover, after we've had that bit of rain, are now rejuvenating, and there's going to be a nice flush of flowers here. Maybe in a week or so we could get something like clouded yellow. I'd love to see clouded yellow again. But there doesn't appear to be anything moving through, so we'll continue on in getting the car up to Lound Wood and have a look, see what we can find on the flowers down at the bottom of Lound Wood. Well, the temperature is very much well and truly on the up. It's very warm, if not indeed hot. I'm now at the side of Lound Wood, just walking down the side, but I always like to stop and appreciate this view. This view is looking south from Lound Wood down over Eakring village in amongst the trees there. When you look at it like this, Eakring is very lucky to have so many trees still within its village boundaries. You can just see the odd rooftop. Yeah, it's far more populated than what it looks from here. But it is a beautiful view. It's just a shame we're looking into the sun, but there's an oak tree in front there. I'm going to have 5 minutes sat underneath that. I'm going to walk down there in a minute, I promise. It is very warm. I feel very lethargic today, which is a posh term for can't be arsed. But I will have a walk down there because it's a cracking bit of habitat, this. This is another one of those little wildlife oases tucked away within the UK countryside. And it's very important because there are flowers still in here. There's thistles, and it looks as though most of the knapweeds have gone over, but there will still be quite a lot of flowers in here, so that should attract a number of insects. But at the moment I'm enjoying the shade of this large oak situated between Lound Wood that you can see on the left hand side and the Lound Wood annex, which you can't see on the right hand side, but that's quite a nice view, isn't it? This is a lovely spot. I can see why I used to spend so much time bird watching here. And the set-aside strip that you can see running down the side of Lound Wood, it's a 6 metre wide set-aside strip. It was instigated as part of the stewardship set-aside scheme a number of years ago, and it's always stayed at 6 metres. And the late Mick Meanley, but now Jim Meanley, never cut 4 metres of that. There's a small strip of about 2 metres or 1.5 to 2 metres that is cut because part of the farm's successful application to get this stewardship grant was that there would be public access, and there is a large walk, it's probably 6-7 kilometres or so, around all of these set-aside strips running around the fields, many of the fields that you can see towards the right hand side of the screen. And then you wind round and then come up the hill here at the side of Lound Wood and then cross over the road, go down heading towards the general direction of Rufford Country Park and around the fields there. It makes a really good walk. Plus there's an awful lot of habitat created by this set-aside strip. It's a great scheme. Far better than the old set-aside fields, because set-aside fields were isolated and they were only temporary, whereas set-aside strips were permanent, or at least as long as the grant allowed or the farmer allowed. And these set-aside strips are well in excess of probably 15-year-old now. That's a big contribution to the wildlife in this area of Nottinghamshire. And so is the set-aside area, a permanent set-aside area by the looks of it, which is in front of us. There's some developing goat sallow, and there's some young ash trees starting to come up. Bit of bramble underneath this oak here. Lots of long grass and lots of fabulous nectar-bearing knapweed. This is an absolutely beautiful spot. Unfortunately, it's not as butterfly rich as I was hoping, because I was expecting the knapweed to still be out, but unfortunately, as you may well be able to see, it's gone over already. There's still quite a lot of nectar-bearing plants here. There's some bits and bobs of ragwort, and of course butterflies and moths will also use rosebay willow herb. We've got a couple of stands of rosebay willow herb in here. The important thing is though that this is permanent. It's not just a transient and temporary bit of ideal habitat for many species. Because of the shortness of the season in terms of flight seasons and periods for butterflies, that's another reason why there's not much here. There's a couple of gatekeepers and a meadow brown, otherwise very little. If only I'd come down a month ago. But it might look a scruffy bit of habitat to some, but this time of year it's important. I mean, August does look scruffy. Oh, there's a skipper, small skipper. But it does look scruffy, but this time of year now the plants are already sort of setting seed for next year. Those plants that are biennials and some plants that are annuals. It's all about preparation for next year. There's lots of thistles here, so it'll be great for goldfinches and finches in the winter. It's just a lovely bit of area that's been left, purposefully left for wildlife. And when it adjoins woodland as it is, already the scrub is now starting to develop. It's interesting that it's sallow, goat sallow, that's appearing first, but I suppose that's typical. Even though there's no sallow in the Loudwood Annex, and there's not very much in Loudwood, just a couple of bits in the centre. The seeds obviously been blown from nearby Eakring Flash. A good bit of habitat for future years. When we were kids and we all used to do this. Quite a decent crop of blackberries. But I don't take them all. I just take a few for myself, and the rest for what wildlife comes along and wants them. And these are every bit as good as you'll get in any supermarket. Just because they haven't got a supermarket label branded across them doesn't mean but they're not absolutely delicious. Well, it certainly looks as though they've had a decent harvest out of this field. I'm presuming that the grain size will be quite small based on the lack of any moisture in the earlier parts of the year. But there's one thing I think is unnecessary. There's something that's missing in this field. Have a look if you can see what I'm missing. The thing that I'm missing, and what this field is missing, isn't the crop that was here, but it's what should have been growing amongst the crop. I think now we make our fields over sterile an environment. There is no evidence of any other plant other than the crop that was here. I'm presuming that the crop was wheat. Completely sterile, devoid, not even a seedling of another plant. That's not good. I don't think it's necessary for us to keep putting all this herbicidal sprays on a crop. I don't think it achieves anything. Never used to make any difference. But it does now, by all accounts. There goes a young blackbird. That's one that's made it. But there's nothing, now the crop's gone out of this field. We've just got the chaff and everything. All that looks no good. There isn't anything. And this is, I suppose, typical of a lot of our farmland now. Again, here we are. As I said earlier in this video, you can't see a flower. That's because there isn't any. We get too much out of the land. Well, everything's about maximum yield and maximum profit. And the different scales of farming take out different scales of produce, yield, and ultimately profit. The larger the concern, usually, the more of a field they'll use. There is a bit of a set-aside strip here, but this is like a 3 metre set-aside strip. It didn't used to be a 3 metre set-aside strip here. They used to plough it right up to the very hill, to the edge of the field, all to squeeze that extra amount of profit out. But it's just a shame that this lovely golden field isn't dotted with the greenery of wild flowers and plants trying to come through, which wouldn't be detrimental to a crop at all. I think people would rather see that myself. I don't like the look of this at all. Times like this, I wished I lived in Lincolnshire. No, I don't.